name is Justine Chappell, Zap and CaFé's Communication and Marketing Manager. I'm super excited to be joined by my colleague, Jessica Gronick, Program Manager of GoSmart, which is WestStaff's online grants management system. Today, we're going to be talking about GoSmart and how you could benefit it for your grant programs or grant making needs. Even if your organization might not have a grant program right now, we hope you'll gain some insight about the grant making process through this demonstration of the platform. So I ask that you make sure your microphone is muted throughout the webinar just to avoid any unintentional disruptions. If you have questions as we go, feel free to use the chat feature and we'll make sure to respond as they come in when they're relevant, or we'll wait till the end of the webinar to address any questions that you have. So feel free to put that all in the chat. We're also recording the webinar right now, so that can be made available later as a resource for you to watch back or share with your colleagues. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to you, Jessica, to give us an intro to GoSmart.
Great, thanks so much, Justine. I'm so glad to be here today talking to your CaFÉ users. As you said, GoSmart is a cloud-based grant management system offering pre- and post-application forms, panel reviewing, and data reporting, among other tools. Though we can work for any type of client, we're tailored for small to medium funders of arts programming. We streamline the collection and management of data, and unlike other SaaS platforms, we are the only system in our price point that provides extensive knowledge of and commitment to arts grants industry practices, lived equitable practices, and personalized customer service and consultation. So GoSmart may be the right fit for CaFÉ folks who also administer narrative-heavy application processes with a focus, of course, on grant funding, but it's also appropriate for art competitions, fellowships, and other processes that would benefit from any of the following: cloud-based management dashboard to guide and organize applicants' journeys, customized panel reviewing and scoring, communication tools, follow-up reports for applicants, and data reporting to gather and synthesize all applicant responses. So I'd love to take some time to show everyone the system. So let's head on over there. And if I could, Justine, I'm going to steal your shared screen. So are you able to see the GoSmart logo in the top left and my mouse moving around? Perfect. Alrighty. So what we're looking at here is one of the three portals that a GoSmart user would have access to. The three portals are the applicant portal, the admin portal, and the panelist portal. So we're going to start over on the applicant portal where we are right now, then hop to panelist, and then finish up with an admin peek at that portal there. So what we're seeing here is the homepage of the applicant portal. Right off the bat, your applicant portal is something that you're going to manage as the admin, and you're going to build it from scratch with a GoSmart team member. So the first thing you're going to do is create a custom URL that, like here, we see demonstrations.gosmart.org. That's something that you're going to decide on with the GoSmart team member and try to make it an extension of your own website. So if your website is tampatourism.gosmart.org or North Carolina Arts Council.gosmart.org. That'd be the way that we would suggest you go, so that North Carolina Arts Council.org might be your website, and this feels like an extension of that. Then the next thing you can do is add your own logo up top. So right here we're seeing our GoSmart logo, but for you it could be whatever your logo is. So again, just feels like an extension of your website and your own branding. Then your applicants are going to see a nav bar, and we'll get into the functions of those, each of those pages in just a moment. But you also have this whole homepage space to really create your own area to, again, sort of carry on your own branding, and also to just let folks know why they're here. By and large, you're going to hear me talk about GoSmart as a grants portal, but as we said, it really could cover a host of different application opportunities. But where I say grants, you really can inject your own application language there. And again, because this is a totally customizable space, you can really decide what the content is, if you want to add some imagery, some links to some other resources, and pull in, again, some of your branding. Once somebody gets registered here, they're going to see a whole host of other opportunities. They're going to start off with their profile page. This is going to be a registration page that they then can continue to access and update. Their profile information becomes part of their submissions. So you want to make sure that the information they're giving you here is also the important information that you need in the application. And if it's not, you can always ask for additional information in the application. So in the instance that somebody who's filling out this form might not be the person who's actually applying for the funding, you can ask for that clarification within the application. But in this instance, your applicants are going to be able to fill out the pretty basic information that would be required of a registration form. They're going to have mostly the primary contact information, some applicant information, contact info, things like that. And then there's a couple ways that you as the admin can change what's being asked here. One of the main tools of the profile page that you can determine whether it's on or off is what we call our enhanced profile setting. And that's where applicants are able to designate themselves as individuals or organizations. This is really valuable if you have different opportunities that should be open to one or both of these pools of applicants. If you have a fellowship that only individuals should apply for, and you have a general operating support that only organizations should apply for, when you set that setting on the back end, this designation helps you just sort of guide folks whether the opportunity is right for them by just basically saying this isn't an opportunity for somebody who's registered as an individual, so you can't apply. So it's just one really great way to sort of fork who's getting into what opportunities. Then there's also the opportunity to add a couple optional items at the end. If you ask for things like congressional district, mission, organization, web address, some of these things can be hidden or turned on and required, or turned on and not required. So it really just depends what you need to gather at the registration state. You can always ask these questions in the application or interim or final reports, but this is just really valuable way to gather that information that folks don't need to give you every time they apply for something. Then we've got the current programs and applications tab. This is where your applicants are going to be spending most of their time. And what we're seeing here is actually me logged in with some admin permissions, so I can actually access any form that's available right now. But I did want to take a second to show you what an applicant might actually see when they're logged in. Because the system is going to use the dates and deadlines very much like it does in CaFÉ to determine when something's available and perhaps when it's past deadline, your applicants are going to see the appropriate links or just text that's going to either keep them from getting into something or allow them to get into something. So for this user, they've missed the deadline, so all they can do here is preview the application, but they actually can't see the application, or in this case, an intent to apply that actually leads into the application. If they were able to start something, they would just see a start button. And then here's an example of somebody who is further down the road in their journey. They've already submitted their intent to apply, and now that's been approved, and so they can start their application. So the dashboard might look a little bit different depending on where that applicant is in their journey. But going back to this space where I have this added permission that you as an admin would have as well, want to take a minute to tell you a little bit more about what's on this page and then actually hop into one of these forms. So right at the start, we see this invitational passcode. This is really great if you want to set up an application cycle that is only available to a certain pool of applicants who you perhaps know. Maybe it's returning applicants from the year before, maybe it's a committee of folks that you already have sort of pre-vetted. Whatever it is, you can set a passcode and then provide that passcode to that audience pool, and then it's hidden basically from this page until they insert the password here. But if they do that, or if the cycle is just set public, as most of them are, what your applicants are going to see here is all of the opportunities that are available right now that the admin has set live. So they might see one opportunity here. In our example, we've got 4. Some of our larger clients that are state arts agencies could have as many as 20 going on at a time. But you as the admin really determine the order of these, and again, sort of what is showing up. So if a cycle is closed because nobody should be getting into it anymore, you can hide it and peel it off this page and make sure that it's not sort of clouding the opportunities that are available right now. You can also determine, do you want to set these in alphabetical order? Do you want to start with your newest available opportunities up top? Do you want to move those that are just in the final report session further down below? You can really manage all that. You're going to give each cycle a name. You're going to provide some additional description and messaging about that program so that folks get a really good sense of, is this the right opportunity for them? And then again, using your dates and deadlines, the system's going to say, should they get in? So if they've started something, let's actually hop into our master demo. We're going to take a peek at all of the elements that could make up an application. Now, because this is our master demo, it's one of each page type and then one element of each page that's available. This is not a common structure of an application. Most applications might be a couple custom narrative pages, 1 or 2 budget pages, perhaps a media selection page, and then that might be it. but just wanted to give you all a sense of the tools that you'd have available to you while you're building. So what we're looking at here, this first page is a custom narrative. This is the most common page and probably feels the most similar to a CaFÉ page. It's really going to start out as a blank slate, and then you can add your narrative questions to it. So our question types are going to be a couple different sizes of text fields. You can add headers, you can add footers, you could add explanation modals. And then the larger and the medium text fields also include a character count that you'll set on the back end. Then we've got some option fields, check mark, radio button, and drop down fields. We have an info only question type. If you want to give a little bit more of a narrative lead up to a question, perhaps you want to provide some more background before you're asking a question. This is a great opportunity to give a longer narrative piece or even to link to other items. You can also include links in the question label itself, but this is always a nice place to do it if you're providing a resource and you want to give a little bit more background about what that resource is. There's a file upload button, and this is actually very different than our media library tool, which we're going to look at in a second, which is also going to feel a lot more like a CaFÉ feature. But this allows the upload of documents and images just directly from the device into the application form. Whereas the media library, I think as most of you know, is actually a library repository where folks will upload, and then within the application they'll attach. So this sort of sidesteps that process and just allows for the immediate upload from someone's device. There are date fields where you can make sure that your formatting is going to be the same for every single applicant. So this is really nice if you're asking date questions. You can make sure that everybody's giving it to you in the same format, which can be really valuable when you're looking at a report later and trying to perhaps sort by dates. And it obviously gives the opportunity to select a month, a day, and a year. And you would set the year range. So it would be whatever year range is valuable for you. Then finally, there's this one great field that's really particular to GoSmart. It's called a category sort select menu field. To your applicant, it's going to look just like a regular dropdown up here. You'll create the label and you'll create the optional responses. But to you, the responses are actually going to show up on your grant manager dashboard. And that's just a terrific tool if you need to ask questions that'll really help guide how folks get paneled, maybe how they get funded if they're selected. In this instance, the example that we show is the ask about a discipline, and that's going to be really valuable for your arts needs typically, especially if you panel by discipline. So this would mean that this applicant is going to show up on your dashboard with the word theater as part of their dashboard information, and you would know right away this person should go to our theater panel. We've also seen it be used for things like budget range, if you tend to award based on a budget amount, and also sometimes by region. So really it can be whatever you want it to be, but it does have to be an optional response question where you create the optional responses. It can't just be sort of an open-ended question, but a really strong tool there. We've also got another tool that's a part of the custom narrative, but it's a different way to use this page, and it's a multiple submission tool. So this is a really unique way to ask for multiple submissions of a single set of questions. And it's sometimes hard to sort of explain when this might be used, but a really good example in this case is maybe your applicant has multiple projects to tell you about within the same application. They're asking for one chunk of money, but maybe they offer 3 different after-school programs. You want to know about each of those projects and programs, but you don't want them to fill out the application 3 or 5 or 10 times. This is really nice because you can craft all the narrative questions you need to gather information about that particular thing, whether it's the project, or we've seen people use this for venue lists or board lists. You'll create that set once, and then you'll set some parameters on the back end. In this instance, we're looking at a range of 2 to 10. So applicants can fill out this set between 2 and 10 times, whatever's appropriate for them. Some really valuable points to this is that it keeps you from having to build this set sort of the common denominator amount of times. So if you wanted to say, you know, well, let folks fill this out 10 times, most of them will fill it out 2 to 5 times, but we're going to have to build this set 10 times. This is really going to save you that building time. It's also really nice because it avoids your applicants from having to see 10 sets of questions if they only need to fill it out 2 or 5 times. And then even further, nicer for your panelists because they also aren't going to end up looking at, you know, potentially 5 or 8 empty sets when they're looking at their review process. So really cleans up the process for everybody and makes it easy to say, this applicant needs it 2 times, this applicant needs it 10 times. It's going to work for both of them. It also works really cleanly in that they'll fill out this form, they'll save, and then as they save, the page regenerates. And once it regenerates, we'll see that there's an additional answer set here, and they can fill out the page again. So just a really strong tool there for applicants if this type of questioning is part of your application process. Then we've got a bunch of different ways to ask for some numerical items, whether that's budget items or just straight numerical things. We've got a custom table form where you can add as many as 3 columns plus a label column. You can create your own custom headers and custom labels. You can allow for free form rows. So if you want somebody to tell you about their own line items, they can do that. And then the tables by default add vertically. So you're always going to have a subtotal and then a grand total for every column. And the real benefit to building a table in GoSmart versus perhaps maybe asking for somebody to upload an Excel spreadsheet of their budget, you have access to each of these numbers in a report. So maybe you want to always be able to grab, what are my applicants spending every year? And you want to just grab that expense total. You can do that really easily in a report versus having to sort of cull through a bunch of uploaded budget tables that you've asked for. Then we've got a calculate across table form, which works very similarly, but actually adds or subtracts horizontally and then adds vertically. So this can be really great for a summary like we're looking at here. If you want to end up with a surplus or a deficit. Now this example, this person was a really great budgeter and ended up with 0, but this would actually end up giving you the surplus or deficit right in the single budget table, which would be nice. Or we see folks use this a lot for matching grants, which can be really valuable. There's one other way to ask for numericals in a custom page, and that's going to be custom calculation. So if you're asking for numbers and it doesn't really facilitate a table, but you do want numbers and you do want the system to automatically total like items, this is a great page for you. You would build these fields on the back end, and then you designate them as expenses, income, in-kind, or informational numerical items. And then the page automatically totals like items. So it's really nice if you want to ask for just sort of itemized pieces per income, expense, and in-kind, but you don't want to set people up with multiple tables or a table even in general if they don't really need one. There's 2 other ways to ask for budgetary information using our templates. These are really robust templates and they can't be modified. They are built for the arts arena, so it should be items that would be valuable for you, but you'll see this is a really comprehensive 3-year budget, and it's actually 3 pages in one to get to the income, expense, and in-kind. So that might be a little too robust for some folks. And if that's the case, we've got a project budget template, which can give us just the high level 3-year operating income and expense totals, and then a little bit of itemized detail. So particular to just the project that's perhaps being requested, or that is requesting funding for. So that might be valuable too, but both of these are templates, meaning they just can't be modified. So if they don't speak to exactly what you need, you can always use the custom tables for that. But this way, if it is the right itemized options for you, then you can just insert it right into your form and you're ready to go. We've also got 2 templates for our NEA users. So if you are a pass-through funder to the National Endowment of the Arts, you know that you have to provide a lot of robust data at the end of your cycle. And so this just helps you get there. It's a template that asks for all of the elements that the NEA and NASA, the National Association of State Arts Agencies, which is a big part of our user pool, those 2 organizations ask for this kind of information at the end. And we've just worked with them every year to make sure that we're asking for the data points that they want to gather. And then we're even further offering all of the optional responses that they offer. And then on the back end, we code them the way that those 2 organizations look at this data. So you and your applicants will see the English, but on the report you send to them, this might be 1A, this might be 2B, and so forth. So it really keeps you from having to do a lot of that coding work. And then finally, we've got a locations form template, and it works very similarly to our multiple submission tool in that it's a form that can be entered over and over again for as many locations as the money was spent. So again, the NEA and NASA really want to drill down to where their dollars have been spent by address or even by latitude and longitude. And so this page just helps you get there. Then once you've crafted your application form or intent to apply or interim report or final report using any of those types of pages, your applicant will get to the end of that form. They'll see a submission page. For the applications, you could offer a draft review session. That's totally optional. And if you opt out of it, these 2 fields are just hidden. But if you allow for it, applicants can give you basically a draft where you would review it and then kick it back to them with some feedback. If you don't allow for that, they'll just see the final submission language that's customizable by you and the final submission button. Once they submit, they'll be kicked back to their current programs and applications, and they can either wait to hear back from you if they've gotten funded or moved forward. And if not, they can come back here and work on any other opportunities that are available. And then just like CaFÉ, they can sort of use this as their dashboard to see, where are they in progress, what maybe is available to them to start, where should they be working on a final report, that sort of thing. So this would really be their dashboard within your GoSmart site. We'll peek at the media library, but probably won't spend too much time there because it should feel really similar to your media library in CaFÉ. You can include some custom language up top, or you can start with our default language. Same for the language beneath each media type. Now we do separate it out in this library. So if they wanted to upload an image, they would have to go first to the image library versus sort of their catch-all library. And then within each media library type, they're going to see items that they've already uploaded. Just like in CaFÉ, they can see the details that they included when they uploaded. They could modify, they could duplicate. The committed feature works the same. So if something's attached to an in-progress form, they can always duplicate so that they can attach a different version of that to another form. And then when they go to upload, they'll be able to pick something from their device and give it a title. And that's enough for them to upload and save to the library. But they do include this metadata, much like the CaFÉ form, if you want to encourage them to provide some of this additional data. A big difference between CaFÉ and GoSmart is that our applicants and applications tend to be a little less focused on sort of the value of work. So it's typically, if somebody's uploading an image, it's going to be a brochure or a picture of their project at work, which doesn't tend to necessitate a lot of this other stuff. It's rarely for the purpose of selling a product or getting folks to really see the deep value, the deep sort of detail of an artwork. So this stuff tends to be a little bit less necessary for the applicants in GoSmart, but we of course wanted to make it available since it can sometimes be valuable. So then again, once somebody's used the media library, they're actually going to use a page over here that I did skip over, sorry, that's the media library selection tool. And that is going to be the space where they can pull in things from their library. So you as an admin would have the opportunity to provide a little bit of leading information, what types of support material are you looking for, maybe include some of our canned language about how to use this page, and then they'll be able to attach any of those items from that library, again, much like CaFÉ. So they'd be able to see what's in their library. If they get here and they haven't yet uploaded, they can click upload new media file, upload their item or items, and then return right back to the application. Now at this point, they would have to still select those items that they wanted. And then as they select, they're going to see those items down below, much like you do in CaFÉ, to be able to say these items are going to go with the submission. All right. Then we've got some tools that will really help you offer the context that your applicants might need. Fund information, grant guidelines, and FAQ are examples of optional navigation pages. So these are totally optional and you decide exactly what the content, the title, everything is. We've got some clients who don't use these at all. We've got some clients who have 8 or 10 of these. And basically it's just going to be another space, much like the home space, where you can add whatever kind of text is valuable for your applicant pool. So these examples are great just because most of the time applicants want to know about grant guidelines. Maybe you, after a year or two, will have a pretty robust list of FAQ that you want to start to include so that you can mitigate some questions. So this is just a great use of that. You can also, like we see here, link to other items. So you might have just a single additional resources page and then link to a bunch of grant guidelines that you've created as a PDF that you can upload and host to your own GoSmart server. So really just a lot of ways for you to offer some additional resources to your applicants. Then finally, there's this tech tips area. We manage that. And although we are not the customer support for your end users, you would be the first line of defense. And then we can, of course, always help you out with that. But because of that, we do want to offer some broad help to applicants, especially where technical items are concerned. So this will handle things like internet, hardware, software, printing. And then we've also created some very broad tutorials, but because every client's content is so different, we can't dive too deeply, but we do of course want applicants to understand, what are they seeing when they look at some of these tools? How do they get in? What does it mean to save and come back to work on an application, that kind of stuff. So we're always open as well to admin to say, hey, this is a question I field a lot. Is this the kind of thing we can add to tech tips? We certainly would. All right, so I know that's a ton of stuff on the applicant portal. That was our deepest dive. Just always want you to understand how your applicants engage with the site, since that's typically your #1 concern. But I do want to take a minute to hop over to our panelist portal. So again, you're going to manage that as an admin, and the panelist portal is going to be a space where you create an opportunity for panelists to come to the system, review, score, and comment on the applications that you assign to them. So from here, your panelists will be able to log in. They're going to see a list of panels that you've made available to them. In this example, I'm a panelist who's been invited to 3 panels, but you might have panelists who are only invited to 1, maybe they're invited to 10, but you will completely control who your panelists are and what they'll be able to see. Once they select a panel to work on, they're going to see their panelist dashboard. You will have created some custom instructions for them. These are not your criteria. This is to be a little bit more broad, maybe just a good place to list expectations for panelists. Maybe if you have an in-person panelist meeting, this is a nice place to put that information. And then you can always, again, link to some other resources. We offer a little bit of help to panelists, much like we do for the applicants, but again, because you're really the folks who we serve and then you serve them, we can only dive too deeply because again, your content is so specific to your panels, but this will help them figure out how to navigate around the panel dashboard and how to make sure that they're using it correctly. But you can link to those items here if you want. You can also link to your own scoring rubrics, really any kind of resources that are valuable for your folks. Right off the bat, they'll be able to start scoring. If they click score applicants, it's just going to take them to that first application in their list of assigned applicants. They could also just sort of hunt and click here. So if they were to click the second person, it's just going to take them right to that second person's application. There's an optional button you can add here for your folks, and that allows them to generate a panel book. Now, that panel book is going to be a master PDF of all application PDFs. They see it first online, so they can generate it if they just want to go through application after application, maybe without scoring, so they can sort of get a sense of the content. That's a nice way to use it. Another way that folks use the panel book is to print it off if they're the kind of person who likes to have a hard copy in their lap, maybe with a cup of coffee and a highlighter. The only drawback there is, of course, this is an online platform, which means there's going to be links to support materials, possibly websites of your applicants, and you don't want to miss that stuff. So if a panelist opts to look at a panel book, you do still want to make the case that they should return to this space and actually look at the applications here online too, so that they can make sure they're not missing links to things. And so because of that, this is an option. So if you don't even want to make a panel book an option, you can just turn off this button. So let's look at their applicant list. Now, this is our demo site. We've only got 2 applications assigned here. That's pretty unusual. Usually it's 30, 50, maybe even 100 folks. But just to give you a sense of the kind of stuff their panelists are going to see from this dash, the first thing they're going to see is a score. Right when they first log in, everyone's going to have this no score label. And then as the panelist goes through and starts scoring folks, then they'll start to see some scores appear here. If they start scoring an application but do not finish, meaning that they've scored some criteria but not all, they might return to this space and see an incomplete label. And then finally, they could recuse themselves if there's a conflict. And so they'll check a box on the scorecard that we'll see in a second. If they do that, that would be a 4th kind of label that would show up here. It would just say conflict. So it's really nice that the panelists can return here over a couple sessions and resort by score. And that's going to put everybody who hasn't gotten a final score together so that it can really easily just go back to the folks who need their attention. Then they're going to see some basic contact information. And if you've included that category sort select menu field in your application, they're going to see that field here as well. So let's go ahead and click score applicants and jump right in and take a peek at what a panelist is going to see. So per applicant, they're going to see these 3 tabs. And of course, my system's going to be moving slowly suddenly every time on a webinar. Once they get in, let's see if I can quickly, if I keep clicking buttons, I find that helps. So it probably is the opposite of what helps. I'll leave that for just a second, but just so you can know, they're going to see the application, and that's going to show up in the form of this master PDF that your panelists and your applicants can always see of an application. It's basically what we call our read-only PDF. Anytime an applicant or an admin or a panelist generates it for the purpose of viewing, they're going to see a header come together with the applicant's information. They're going to see the applicant's profile, and then they're going to see the questions of the application along with the applicant's response. So this is how a panelist is going to see the content of the application. They'd be able to click on links for those upload file fields, and that's just going to open in a new window. They'd be able to see budgetary information sort of in a table form. And then they would be able to see any media that's attached to the the media library select page as thumbnails. Then let's see if it formed here. Let's see. Then they'll see the support materials tab, and let me log out and log back in and see if that helps us go any faster.
And while you're doing that, I'll just say, to remind everyone, if you have any questions for Jessica as she goes through this, feel free to type that into the chat window, and we can answer those for you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Justine. Every time. All right, I hate to be abstract and paint a picture for you, but let me just, so we can keep moving forward. The support materials tab is really just going to pull out all of those support materials into its own modal. So you can just arrow through and take a peek at all of those media, no matter what type it is. And if it's an image, you'll see a 500 pixel version. If it is, let's see here. Here we are. Oh, I've broken our system. So from the support materials section, like I said, you're going to be able to see all of that extrapolated media in a modal. So if we start with a checklist, it's going to open the PDF right there on screen for us to see. If it is a video, we'll see that right in the screen. Audio, we can hear right from there. And then our images, we'll be able to see the smaller version and then a high-res version if that's more valuable. So once the panelist has also been able to sort of do a double check of the support material, they'll be able to head to the scorecard. And from here, that's where they're going to see your custom criteria. So for applications in Go Smart, I think one of the biggest differences probably between CaFÉ and Go Smart is that your criteria is going to be a little bit more narrative related. The questions are not going to be just about, do we like this artwork or is it right for this show, but rather maybe, is this the right project or organization for our community? Is what they're asking for sustainable after we've provided funding? Is their program valuable? That kind of stuff. So as an admin, you would create that criteria with a small description on the back end. You'd create a score range, and then it'll all be pulled together in this scorecard for the reviewers to see. So as they're reviewing the application and the support material, they'll consider these criteria, and then they'll come to this space to use either the slider or the up-down arrows, or they can just type right in. If they type something not available, they'll see that as an error. And then they can leave an optional comment for that particular criteria. And as they fill out those criteria scores, they'll see their total come together up top. Then once they save, that's when they're going to see back on their dashboard that now this user has a score, and they could either say, great, they're done, or they could move on to the next person who's not scored. So that's going to be the panel portal. Thanks so much for your patience there. Let's take one final look at one last portal. So we're going to head into our admin portal, and I won't do nearly the deep dive there, but just want to give you a sense of what it would feel like to be spending time back here. You'll see right away, it's got a very similar feel to the two other portals. You'll see our logo up top. You'll see your nav bar with your tools, and then each section obviously will give you different opportunities to manage your applicant and panelist portals, as well as your applicant data. So administration is going to let you manage your users. It's also going to let you see a bird's eye view of what you currently have live. So you may have, 10 years worth of applications on the site, but this list is going to be what is showing right now to your applicants. So it's a great place to come just to be reminded, oh, do I have that are out of date that should maybe be hidden? Or am I seeing what I expect to be seeing here? The front end manager is going to let you manage everything on the applicant portal outside of that grant content. So from here, you're going to manage your homepage message. You're going to upload your logo. You would be able to manage the elements of your profile that are optional. You can add any of that additional text to the media library, or you can determine if you want to accept all or any of the media types. And then you can, of course, add those additional optional navigational resource pages. And then from the grant editor, you're going to add your programs to the system, and these are sort of your master folders for each program that you offer. Then the program cycles is going to get down to the individual cyclical offering of that. So if it's annual, it might be your 2022 version of that program. And from here, you're going to manage all of the logistics, things like dates and deadlines. Is it showing up on that front dashboard? Does it have a passcode? That's where you're going to manage all that kind of stuff. You can add that additional text like the program description and message. Then you can also, one of our greatest tools is that you can clone year after year. So you're going to do quite a bit of work that first year you come into the site to offer your opportunities. You're going to do quite a bit of building. This really alleviates any of that building year after year. You're going to click clone. Everything you built the year before is cloned as it says, and then you can just do a quick search for things that need to be updated, like date specific items, and then you're ready to go the following year. So all that kind of stuff is managed from program cycles. Then cycle pages is where you're going to create the content. So everything we just looked at in that master demo are going to be these Peach application pages, but there's also an intent to apply page that's optional, as well as an optional interim report and final report. And you really determine what makes these pieces up. There's no page that has to be included in any of these forms. So you determine, you know, am I just asking for budget information? Great. Maybe my interim report is a single budget page and that's it. Or do I want to get really in depth and ask for the kinds of stuff that we saw in that demo? Then the grant manager dashboard is going to feel pretty similar to what you guys use in CaFÉ, I think. It's split up by the status table where we can see all of our folks at a bird's eye view, who's in what statuses. And if we click that number, it's going to basically filter down below and we'll see just who's in that status. Or if we're looking at everybody, we can of course use our filter features here and do a primary sort as well as a secondary sort of any of these items up top. You'll see that there's quite a bit of data here. The main things you're going to see pulled in is sort of that basic information about the applicant. You'll be able to delete per application, which of course you want to be careful about. If you use the system to record your awardings, that's going to be really valuable later. I just had a client yesterday ask if they could go back to a 2018 cycle and see what they funded. And because they used the system to house this award amount, they were able to pull a really quick report and know exactly what they funded something 5 years ago. Just like CaFÉ, you'll use this space to sort of manage the statuses, which help move people through their journey. You can use our comment section, which I always really tout. It's a really terrific catch-all for anything else that you need to do with this dashboard. If there isn't already an existing space to do it, this is great if you want to make a tag, if you want to have sort of an ongoing living conversation amongst your team. Maybe this is a great place where everybody comes in and says, JG reviewed on 11/14, JC awarded on 12/1, and AB awarded on or sent the check on January 1st. That way you can just sort of grab all that information and have it right here. And this table, this comment section is always available as a cell in your reports. So it's a really great catch-all. And if you want to use your own kind of coding, you can always include something here and then include it on a report later to be able to really capture sort of how you've managed folks as they've moved through. You'll see submit and start timestamps, which can be really valuable. If you include that category sort select question in your application, this is where it would show up. You can see that it's going to show applicants' responses, but that you also can even toggle these. So you could even use it as an admin tool if you wanted to create sort of a after the fact admin piece where maybe that's how you show if somebody's been paid or not, or however you want to use it. You'll do your panel assignment from here. And then the biggest tools from here is you can log in as an applicant and see the portal as they do, or you'll again open that read-only PDF to do your review of the application if you do that before you kick it to panelists. There's two communications tools. We've got a status mailer, which is basically our auto confirmation tool. You can create a status mailer for any and all statuses, and it's basically going to lie dormant until an applicant reaches that status. And then at that point, when they reach the status, they're going to receive that email. It's also a great tool if you set yourself as a BCC recipient to remind you that something has been received. So it can really work a couple different ways. Then we've also got a mass mailer, much like the CaFÉ mass mailer, where somebody can come in and select any or all statuses and send out an immediate email. So if it's a week before the deadline, maybe you come here and grab in progress and just remind everybody that they've got a week to get in and get that submitted. The panel editor is going to be very much like the grant editor, but basically for creating that panel piece that we saw. So you can come in and create one or multiple panels per cycle. So again, maybe you have an applicant pool of 200 folks, but a big question you ask is what discipline is their project? And so maybe you create a panel for each discipline, and then you're going to sort of offshoot the applicants to the appropriate panel so that they're only being viewed by experts in their arena, maybe. So sometimes we see multiple panels, but very often we see just a single panel for the whole applicant pool. But in either case, you would be able to do some basic settings, sort of turn on some of those optional items we talked about. You would create your criteria from here, and you would assign your panelists from here. You can pull several different kinds of reports. So the custom report builder is going to be the most robust. You can pull any or all data from the applicant information, from the general application data, and from any or all application pages of a cycle. And then once you pull that, you'll have the opportunity to either view it online as an HTML version. That can be helpful if you're just trying to get like a bird's eye view of maybe budget numbers or zip codes if you want to see, who's applying from where. But most of the time you're going to want to download it as a CSV, and that's going to open in any kind of spreadsheet program that you use. We've also got a panelist report, and that's going to be the great way that you're going to see your panelists' scores and comments. A panel book in case you want to pull one of those master PDFs. That's also really great for just record retention. So at the end of every cycle, you might pull a panel book just so you can keep all the applications in one place on your own server at your physical location. An NEA report and a locations report for those NEA reporters. And then a multiple submission report that goes along with that multiple submission page that we saw. If you include the data from a multiple submission page in the custom report, it's going to show up with every response inside a single cell. So it's really valuable if you just want to sort of see that data, but you don't need to manipulate it or synthesize it. But the multiple submission report pulls that single page of data into individual rows per submission. And that way it makes it a little bit easier if you wanted to make a contact list of board members or grab everybody's budget number for their projects, things like that. So it just makes it even easier to manipulate and sort of synthesize that data as you need. There's another tool if you want to just search for applicants by any of these fields, and then searching for them is going to just give you these results where you'll be able to see their username. If somebody reaches out and says they've forgotten what that is, there is a forget username tool on the front dashboard, but in case somebody is struggling with that, you can always get that information for them. You can email them straight from the system from here, and of course you can log in as that user. There's a help desk, our knowledge base, which is just a repository of all of our tutorials and webinars and FAQ. So if our customer support isn't available for you on the weekends or in the evenings, this is a great resource or just a great first stop before you reach out to us. And then of course you can log out. So those are the 3 portals of GoSmart. Sorry that got so intensive, but I do of course want you to understand the differences between what you might see in CaFÉ versus GoSmart. So I'll hand it on back to you, Justine.
Thanks so much. That was such a great introduction to GoSmart, and I love being able to see all the different panels or the dashboard so you can see what it looks like. So thanks so much for that introduction. The next part of our webinar today, I just want to move into some comparisons between CaFÉ and GoSmart. So in Jessica's demo, you can see how GoSmart looks a bit different from CaFÉ, and there's some things that you can do in GoSmart that you can't do in CaFÉ, but hopefully you picked up on some similarities too. And just so you can see how maybe the workflow is pretty similar to CaFÉ, or how you might have a lower barrier to entry if you were to use GoSmart since you are already familiar with the CaFÉ program. So we just want to point out a few things that are different so you know what GoSmart may be suited for, and we'll just kind of show you on here. We'll go through this a little bit quickly just so we can wrap up in the hour. So we'll get right into it. So types of opportunities, right? So CaFÉ, has a breadth of different opportunities that an organization might collect applications for. So that could be gallery exhibitions, art contests, public art RFQs, RFPs, residencies, fellowships, all that kind of stuff. And I'll let Jessica explain a little bit more with GoSmart.
For sure, for sure. So as we pointed out, we're really appropriate for grant programs. I mean, that's our main focus, but we can also house competitions, any application-driven scenario like a fellowship, a scholarship, even just awards, and really strong for those that need significant narrative and budget data.
Yeah, and then kind of just going into the user profiles, CaFÉ, we have 3 different user portals. So administrators, we all know that's you all who administer the call for entry, the artists or the applicants that apply to those opportunities, and the jurors, which is pretty similar to Go Smart, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we've also got just administrators or grant makers, grant applicants, and then panelists who are, for all intents and purposes, are jurors. They just like to use that different nomenclature.
Yeah. For building the application, CaFÉ, because it really is focused more on the kind of visual components, the big part of the CaFÉ application is setting that minimum to maximum number of images, audios, or video files. And that could be it for an organization. They might not build anything else for their application. They just ask for some artwork and artists can submit that. But there are some opportunities to be able to build artist statements, to collect those from artists, set up categories, so GoSmart can do that too, and create application questions that, you know, depending on the types of questions, we have 6 different types, you could have them upload other files, answer text questions, you know, make a checklist kind of thing. So CaFÉ has that, but GoSmart definitely does have a more broad range of things that you can build for the application.
We do. As you saw, we've got all those templates. We have 11 page types, 14 question types, the media library, which is similar to CaFÉ, of course, but also budget tables, that multiple submission tool. So a lot else going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For managing applications, this is pretty similar between the two programs. So CaFÉ can sort and filter applications by status category. We can add some tags, we can flag comments in CaFÉ, and preview the application images, again, because the images themselves are a big component for CaFÉ calls.
Totally. And as you saw, sorting and filtering is also possible on the grant management dashboard. But we also include things like the app number, the name, status, profile type, category, date, things like that. And you can, of course, also leave and modify internal comments that can be included on reports.
Great.
Yeah.
In the jury side, so, you know, CaFÉ is kind of simplified, I feel like. So you add your juror profiles, you create the username, passwords, you set up scoring types. So you might set a different range, whether that's 1 through 7, 1 through 20, or just a simple yes, no, maybe for including that artwork in the exhibition or whatever the project is. And then being able to pull reports. But as you saw in Jessica's demo, the panel process is a lot more involved.
Totally. You can add and assign panelists just like you do in CaFÉ, but you can also sort of, because cycles might have more than one panel, you can make sure that some panelists have available or have access to more than one panel if they're an expert in more than one field. You can assign specific applications to panels. You can create that custom scoring criteria. And then, of course, that scoring report is available in GoSmart as well.
Yeah, and I definitely think in GoSmart, the scoring criteria, which is something CaFÉ doesn't offer, at least not yet, we'll see what happens, is really valuable, especially for grant programs that you have a different, a whole subset of categories that you need to score for. So yeah. And then, you know, notifying tools, so our communication methods, both programs, you can send mass emails to artists based on the status. In CaFÉ, you can send an email to an individual, but I think that auto confirmation is a big difference in GoSmart.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, and then reporting. So CaFÉ, you know, you can take reports for artist information, you can take reports for specific artwork information, and that can be in spreadsheets or PDFs. And then you can create or download income breakdown reports of the entry fees that when you're collecting on CaFÉ, artists will pay an entry fee. And so you can run reports for the revenue that your organization is bringing in for that. So this is another area that GoSmart differs.
For sure, we definitely differ. You've got that whole piece where you do entry fees, and that is one big piece of GoSmart that I actually didn't ever mention. There are no fees for applicants, and there's never really an opportunity, as in CaFÉ, where GoSmart would maybe be, or GoSmart clients rather, might be incurring fees from applicant users. So big difference there. So because of that, we don't have a report on that kind of stuff, but we do have, as you just saw a couple minutes ago, that larger custom data pull that you can do. We've got that multiple submission reporting. Oh, I'm sorry, I did miss, there's a media piece too, where you can pull that metadata from the custom report, but it's because, again, the media tends to be such a smaller piece of GoSmart applications. It's sort of a secondary piece of that custom data pull. And then we've got those NEA reporting tools. Yeah.
And then our last comparison here, CaFÉ, we've got some add-on services that might be, suited for calls for entry. One thing that we didn't really mention so much was that CaFÉ, because all the calls that are listed, unless an organization might say that it's a invitational only call, it gets added to a public list of opportunities that anyone can browse and anyone can view what's up on the site and apply to it if they want. And so because of that, CaFÉ has some promotional add-ons that we can help you reach these artists that are browsing the site every day and help you push that information about your opportunity to them. So we offer a promotional e-blast service for that. CaFÉ also offers a letters of reference module, so that might be used for residency applications, or if they have anything, fellowships or something like that. We have the ability to collect confidential letters of reference through the CaFÉ system to bring in that third party of the person that's referring the artist. And then we have a smart call service that allows the CaFÉ team to build your call for entry for you, essentially, in CaFÉ. You just provide us the information and we help you set everything up so you don't really have to worry about so much of the CaFÉ side of things.
Exactly. Thanks so much, Justine, too, for bringing that up. I had forgotten to mention that we are quite siloed, very different from the way that CaFÉ gets to be that giant repository. If you're North Carolina Arts Council, your pool of applicants tends to just be from North Carolina. They might also be applicants of South Arts, which is the larger regional arts organization that also encompasses North Carolina, but those would be two separate sites. So that applicant would have to go to two separate GoSmart sites versus CaFÉ, where they just always go to call for entry and can see both of those opportunities there. So thank you. That's a quite a big differentiator there. And then for our add-on services, we have a very similar smart call build where we call it a smart start. So if you need help with building services, we can do that for you. We have additional customer support and media storage packages you can purchase on top of what's already included with your yearly subscription. And then of course have that multiple submission tool that we picked up.
Great. And we do have a question here in the chat while we're still kind of on the slide with reporting and everything. So can GoSmart collect final evaluations or reports from grantees?
Absolutely, absolutely. Sorry if it was sort of glossed over, but for sure, while you're building that application form, you can also build an interim report and a final report, either of those being optional. So if you build a final report and you can invite applicants back, 12, 16 months later and say, tell us how you spend our money. So for sure, it's definitely a valuable tool for that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Cool. So, those were some comparisons between CaFÉ and Go, just to show you how you might use GoSmart. If you were to use it, the learning curve might be cut down for you because you're a lot, familiar with a lot of the same concepts and tools. Jessica and I both work for West Staff, so you're kind of joining a team that, we're all dedicated to the arts and we're knowledgeable about, different kinds of opportunities that you can use our online platforms to be able to reach artists and collect everything that you need and really, streamline your programs. And I also wanted to show kind of how GoSmart has a lot more robust features that really benefit a grant program that CaFÉ might be more, focused on that visual component. And so you might need CaFÉ for an exhibition or an event or an opportunity, but you might also need GoSmart if you have a grant program running concurrently. So now I just want to ask Jessica if you might want to go through, some other reasons, just some closing remarks about why someone might need to use GoSmart.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think we'll touch a little bit on Raquel's question there. So mostly, the big number one thing about us is that we're just suited for grant making workflow. So we've got those 4 standard grant forms available: the intent to apply, the application, the interim report, and the final report. And even though all of those are optional pieces of a larger cycle, certainly it's built with the intention that you might be using all 4 of those forms for your cycle, and really helps you move an applicant through that journey. We also have an array of grant-specific tools and templates that you saw, things like the budget tables, the NEA demographics pages, the multiple submission tool, extended cycles, which we didn't even look at, but if you have a multi-year grant where maybe you ask folks to come back year after year, not really applying again and not really submitting an interim report, but maybe some kind of hybrid of the two where you want to pull some of their initial application information forward and then ask them some new information. We've got extended cycles for that too. So just a lot of really great tools and templates that are really specific to the grant process. And then we of course have that built-in panel editor that allows for custom elements and templated processes and that robust reporting to fit your needs.
Well, great. Thank you so much. I can go back here a little bit too. Thank you for introducing us to GoSmart. I think this was a great introduction for anyone that want to peek inside what GoSmart can do. And I think it can do a lot and help organizations streamline their grant programs. So thanks again for joining us today. And thank you, Jessica, for walking us through the platform. And so I hope you learned something that you can take back to your colleagues or maybe fellow art organizations. We'll be sending this recording out to everyone. So if you want to watch it back or send it to anyone in your network that might be interested in using GoSmart, because you already have familiarity with CaFÉ, you might want to show them a little bit about how the programs might be able to, be used at the same time. We'll send that recording out to everyone. And if you're interested in using GoSmart or have any questions about it, you can contact Jessica. She provided her email there. GoSmartSales@westaf.org will go directly to her, and you can contact her there if you have any questions. So if there's any other questions from anyone, you can put that in the chat, or if that's all, then we'll go ahead and wrap up and wish everyone a happy weekend.
Indeed. Thanks so much, Justine, and thanks for everybody for joining. Take care. Bye-bye.